So thank you very much for this invitation. Thank you for the presentation. Yeah, one thing that you missed, if I may, Pierre, is in fact I was during 20 years a professor of computer science in French university. It's in fact my real job, and I never imagined to become one day CEO of CNRS. I was just a normal researcher. And at some point, somebody asks you, do you want to take some responsibilities? And you make the error to say yes. And after that, you became CEO of CNRS. Some words about CNRS, perhaps some more words about CNRS. CNRS is huge. CNRS is 33,000 employees, a budget of 3.3 billion euros. Annual budget. It's the second largest public research institution in the world after the Chinese Academy of Science. I don't know whether we have to be proud of that, but that's a fact. And we cover all fields of science, including humanities and social sciences. We are organized in 10 scientific institutes. I will try to list all of them. I should succeed. We have chemistry, physics, particle physics, universe sciences, ecology, chemistry. Did I say that already? Yes. So I'll try to cheat. Human sciences, mathematics, computer science, and system sciences. And biology, of course. Biology is 25% of CNRS. So we cover all the fields of science in a French system, which sometimes can appear as a bit complicated. But complication is always on the other countries. Sometimes I also find the Canadian system not so simple. So because in France we have, as you probably know, we have the university and also les grandes écoles. But we have also this public research institution like CNRS, but also like INSERM in medical science, like INRIA, that I had the pleasure to share for 3 years, like INRA for agriculture. And the particularity of the French system is that our labs are in fact joint labs. And CNRS is organized in more than 1,000 labs all around France. And all of them, in fact, are joint labs with university. And this gives to a force of 45,000 permanent researchers. And if I include PhD students, it's about 100,000 people, which is quite big, as you imagine. We try to be really international. It means that we welcome every year about 30% of the permanent researchers that we hire every year are non-French citizens. With this particularity that the status of the permanent researchers of CNRS is civil servant. They have a civil servant position. But we can hire French civil servants of any nationality. So we have some Canadian guys, of course, but we have which is not a surprise. But we have also some Chinese guys who have a civil servant position in France. That's once again the French system. So we welcome a lot of foreign researchers, but we have also a strong policy abroad. So we have more than 200 labs outside France. About 20 of them are in Canada. We'll come back on that point. We have also 8 offices abroad. One in Brussels, I can say of course, because you know that European Commission is very important. One in South Africa, one in South America, 4 in Asia, and 1 in Washington. And until, I can say today, we didn't have any office in Canada. And we will not open a real office. It's an antenna, you can say, in close relation with University of Ottawa. And je salue Jacques, qui est ici. And it will be some kind of joint office with Université de Lyon. And this office, so semi-office, if I can say, so we'll be here in Ottawa. I think it's very important for us to develop our relations with all the Canada and not only the Quebec. You know that France and Quebec have, of course, very close relations. But in fact, if I look at the universities in Canada with whom we work the most, with who we have the highest number of co-publications, for instance, the first is the University of Toronto. And so not in the Quebec. And we really think that with University of Ottawa, of course, but not only, we have to develop more and more our relations. If we look to what we do with Canada, as I said, we have about 20 labs, so it's 10% of all our labs outside France, so it's significant. And a particularity of our relation with Canada is that we work with, if I can say, everybody. I mean by that we have our 20 labs or with 14 different universities. And it covers all the fields of CNRS. 9 of our 10 institutes have at least one joint labs with a Canadian university. And the last one is the Institute of Nuclear and Physics Particles, and we have this very big infrastructure, the Triomphe, which is a joint infrastructure with Canada. So you really see that we cover all fields of science. You know that we have a lot of students and researchers who come in Canada every year, but we really think that thanks to this new office, we will develop more our relations. I think it's very important to increase our relations, in particular in the field of AI. And you asked me to say a word about AI, both in Canada and in France. And I have to say that I'm a bit jealous of Canada. But I don't know whether you know la fable du lièvre et de la tortue. Okay? Okay? So be careful. Because you know that le lièvre perd à la fin. The only problem is that you take a quite huge advance, and so I'm not sure that the turtle always be able to rattraper the air. No, AI is, of course, a priority in France. It's a priority in Canada. I think your Prime Minister Trudeau and our President Macron both declare AI as a priority. In fact, I am a member of the Research Council of CIFAR, the Canadian Institute for Advanced Research, which has been charged to operate, if I can say, the 3 centers of AI that you have chosen in Edmonton, Toronto, and Montreal, AMI, Mila, and Vector. And yesterday, it was a day where we present the 21st shares, since you have chosen to have this type of system to improve the quality of the research in AI and to keep your researchers and to welcome new researchers from abroad. And I think it's a very, very performant system. Among the 29 shares that we have selected, 15, so half of them were Canadian people, so who will stay in Canada, but 14 were people coming from outside of Canada and that you welcome in Canada thanks to this system. And you know probably that in AI and big data now the race to welcome and to attract and to keep researchers is really international. All of the scientific countries make AI a priority, so the competition is quite complicated, difficult. And I really think that you have a system which is really, really a good one. And you had the courage to select the 3 centers in a non-democratic way. You said the 3 centers will be in Edmonton, Toronto, and Montreal. Of course, it's not fully democratic, I do agree, but it's fully efficient. And in France, you know that we are a real democratic country, as you can see on TV these days. I don't know if I am supposed to come back to France this afternoon, but I'm not sure. I will look at the TV. Perhaps I will ask you for the asile politique, okay? So we had a call for proposals, and we had 12 applications for centers, and we select only 4 of them. So, as you can understand, the 8 also complain, but they are not the ones who are on the streets right now. But they complain. I think it's not so efficient, and I really think that sometimes we have to go fast, and to make choices is the right way to do. And what you do also is you make the second choice, and you're probably not so aware of it, is that when people speak of AI, nobody knows exactly what is AI. First of all, I don't know how it is here in Canada, but in France, some people are afraid about AI. And as if AI comes from, we don't know exactly, from the moon or something else. And I think that people who are afraid of AI, you can say, okay, but if you're afraid of AI, then first take your smartphone and throw it away. Throw away your car, don't use your plane, because in your smartphone, in your car, in your plane, you have a lot of AI already. And so AI is not new. And when I was the chair of INRIA, I tried to explain to people, I said, 5 years ago, we didn't do any AI. Nowadays, we do only AIs. But we do exactly the same thing that 5 years ago. Okay, what I mean by that AI is some kind of buzz expression, and we don't know exactly what is AI. AI is, as all research, AI takes time, and if you consider the deep learning algorithms that are mentioned everywhere, these algorithms date from 30 years ago. And the pioneer in this field, one of the most famous pioneers in this field is Jeff Hinton, which is a professor in Toronto, and with Yoshua Bengio, that all of you know, I assume. And their first results date from 30 years ago. So it's really, you have to understand that AI takes time, as all other research subjects. Sorry, and I come back to the choice that you made without be aware of it, except people who really did the choice, is that you do not support all AI in the broad world or acceptation of this term. You have coined a new name, which is deep AI, which does not mean anything. But it helps you to say, okay, among all AI, what we will really support is learning. And I think it's once again, it's a very, very efficient choice, and I would like to congratulate you to have been able to make the choice. And as I said, I would like that France does the same choice and was able to really select a limited number of subjects and a limited number of centers. I think it's really the way to be efficient. And learning is absolutely fabulous, and it has already impact in a lot of fields. It will have impact in a lot of things. I was Saturday and Sunday in Montreal for the evaluation of one of the CFAR networks precisely about learning, and they present us the perspective for the next 5 years, and the perspective in relation between learning, AI, and neuroscience are absolutely fabulous. And you have really, here in Canada, une longueur d'avance, and I hope that you will not keep it. But it's really something very, very, very impressive, that how Canada has, in some years, really take a position of leader in that field. It's a field where the competition is really, really complicated, because China invests a lot, US invests a lot, smaller countries like Singapore invest also a lot. So once again, the competition is really, really complicated, really hard. But now, thanks to these 3 centers, I am really convinced that you have a unique place. But I am also convinced that we have to develop relations between France and Canada on that subject. As you know, behind AI, there are a lot of mathematics and computer science. As you always also know, France is a country where these 2 fields, mathematics and computer science, are quite fields of excellence in France. We have a number of fields medals, which is really impressive. I think we have the 2nd number behind the US. And to be honest, US people who get these fields medals more often, they do not really come from US, but it's good. They are first. US is ranked first. I do not have to complain about that. But France remains a very, very good country in computer science and mathematics. And so we have also the capacity to have very good researchers. And we have already relations between France and Canada, and I think that we have to develop this relation. From a purely scientific point of view, I speak of mathematics and computer science, but also on another dimension of AI, which appears to be very important, is all the questions of ethics. Ethics have really to be taken into account. We have to be cautious on one point about ethics. At first, ethics is very important, and I started by this strong statement, but we have to pay attention that ethics does not become a specialty of France and perhaps Canada, whereas business is done by China and US. Okay? I don't know exactly how it is in Canada, but I am sure that in France it could be the case. You know, in France we like to discuss, we like the debates, and on ethics of AI you can have infinite debates, if I can say. And these debates are important, once again, but they do not have to be opposed to the fact to do business and to do business. And on this ethics, I think it's important to mention the fact that ethics is not a universal concept. China has its own ethics. Europe and perhaps Canada, well, I think quite close on that aspect. We have our own ethics. Their ethics is not better or worse than our ethics, just different. If you know, for instance, the system of face recognition in China, they seem to be very happy with that. I have to say that in France, we are not so happy. In France, if you enter in a shop where you never be before, and if somebody comes to you and say, "Hello, Mr. Petit," I am so afraid that I will come back and run in the street. In China, people are very happy to be welcome, even if they never enter in the shop before. And so the notion of identity, of confidentiality is not the same. And once again, it's not better or worse, it's just different. And so I think it's very important that we have a discussion about this ethics, and the ethics depend of our history, our values, and have really to be discussed. And you probably know that Prime Minister Trudeau and President Macron have some kind of joint, I don't know if it is a dream or a project, probably more a project now, is to have some equivalence of IPCC on AI. Un GIEC de l'IA en français. I think it's a very, very interesting idea. It's more complicated because, as I said, on climate change, I think everybody agree, except one guy at the head of a country not far from you. But all reasonable people agree, if I can say. On AI, it's not so simple. Not so simple, but I think it's more complicated on AI to agree on solutions, but I think that we could, with a little work, agree on the real questions on which people have to think about. And this will require research with, of course, people from computer science and mathematics fields, but together with philosophers, with sociologists, with historians, with ethnographs, and that's very, very important. And I think it's a subject on which Canada and France can cooperate. I think in our both countries we have very smart skills on all these aspects. And it's once again something on which our common values, because I'm sure that even if we have differences, of course, I think that we share more or less the same values. It's a field on which we should increase our cooperation. And CNRS, as I explained to you, we have this particularity to have inside our labs all these skills, if I can say. We have labs in sociology, in mathematics, and so on. I will not repeat the list. And I will be very happy if we can develop relations with Canada. I think that we have two big players now in AI, who are China and US. And I think that all the other players are, in fact, small players. And my opinion is that we have to work together to become altogether a third big player in order to discuss with the two others, the two big. It's not the idea, it's not to have a fight against China or US, but I think it's important that the solutions that would be provided for AI are not given only by these two big players and the two big companies, or the biggest companies that they have. I have nothing against these big companies, but sometimes they impose to us their view, and without probably enough reflection from our side. And I think it's very important if we can all together, the smaller player, have a common opinion, and perhaps to be able to have new companies. You have a very promising startup in Canada with Element AI, which in some months, if I can say, takes a very, very unique place in the world landscape. And together, I'm sure that we could, when I say together, it's France and Canada, but we also with Germany and probably other smaller countries. I think it's really a field on which we should cooperate more. So I will stop here. I'm ready for any questions that you could have. Once again, thank you very much for the invitation. It was not the first time that I participate to your work. Since 2 years ago, you invited me to be member of the panel who would select or to give advice to select the project. I have to say that I was very impressed by the quality of the infrastructures that you have here in Canada, thanks in particular to the foundation. And I think, in a general way, I think it's very useful to exchange. I don't know about your politicians, but our politicians do not, except Macron, which is a bit unique, as you can see on the streets right now. I think that our politicians do not exchange enough and do not travel enough, and it's always interesting to see how other countries proceed. And I'm always happy to go abroad. Next year, and I will finish on that point, CNRS will celebrate its 80th anniversary. So we are born in October 1939, which is kind of strange because at that time Europe had some problems, as you know. But it's like that, and we will have in 2019 a year of anniversary, and I really think that we can use this year to put some light on our cooperations and to develop this cooperation, and I will be very happy to welcome you in France, and if you invite me, to come back here in Canada. Thank you.